And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nice Guy Andy podcast studio and welcome to Talking in Circles with Adrian Alexander. And the most exciting part about this, my very first guest here for my very first episode here in the studio is none other than Mr. Dan Childers.
Hey, Adrian. Hey, everybody.
So this is new to me. This is new to Mr. Dan, and this is, well, it's not Johnny's first day on the job. So he's going to help us a little bit and maybe lead me here and there. But before we get into anything, I would just like to say a huge shout out to Appalachian Mountain Wrestling, a huge shout out to Ultimate Championship Wrestling, a huge shout out to the Nice Guy Andy podcast for allowing me to do this on their show. So, huge thank you. I'm going to thank you, Johnny, since you happen to be the only person here from the Nice Guy Andy podcast. But thank you to Andy, to Sean Johns, to everybody from the studio. We are here right now. We are watching wrestling. We are talking about wrestling. We are going to dive into the career of Mr. Danny Steamboat.
Oh, boy.
So very excited about that. So, Mr. Dan Childers, let me ask the first question. Let me ask, give me a rundown. Give me your child. What got you into wrestling? What what sparked the seeds before you even started training? What got you into wrestling?
Well, in elementary school and in middle school, a good friend of mine, Shannon McKinney, he probably was the first person that I ever heard talk about Saturday morning wrestling. And I'm talking about the wrestling with Lance Russell and Dave Brown, out of Memphis, Tennessee, and they got the little wrestling statue going around and around, and dum, 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 dum. And there you go with Lance and Dave at the desk. So he got me started watching that because he's the one that told me, it comes on at that time, Channel 18 WLEX out of Lexington at high noon. So at 12 o'clock, every Saturday I was glued to the TV. And so he's the one that got me watching it. I mean, we got into trouble at recess. I know when we were in 7th grade one time, we had a scuffle with a couple of 8th graders, and the next thing I know, Shannon's pulling a dog chain out of his Levi's. And I'm like, man, this can't be good. But anyhow, that's a story for another day. But that's what started it all in middle school, and, it didn't take 1 or 2 episodes, and I was of watching Memphis wrestling and Joe LeDuc and all that stuff, and I was hooked.
That's awesome. So Memphis was where, for myself, who, is a little bit younger, I grew up watching WWE.
A lot younger, probably.
A lot younger. So, was Memphis the only thing on TV? Or was there other wrestling? Was it like, Memphis wrestling was this night, USA was this night? Like, how did that work?
Well, that's a very good question. Memphis was the first wrestling that I saw. Okay. But not too long after that was another promotion that was actually based out of Lexington, Kentucky, which is the Poffos and ICW. And, they, at the time, I believe it was Channel 62 before they switched over to Channel 36. It's the same place. It was just 62, and then it became Channel 36.
Okay.
And I remember seeing late at night, I mean, it was like either Saturday night or Sunday night at 11 p.m. or midnight or something. And one of the first things I saw there was Randy Savage dropping the elbow on Wee Willie, politically correct, the little person. So, but anyhow, and that was a shocker. Man, everybody was talking about that at school, the next. So yes, ICW, with the Devil's Duo, Jeff Swords and Doug Vines, and Izzy Slapowitz, and the Miser, and Leapin' Lanny and George Weingroff, and Pistol Pez Watley, wearing the mop head. And so it was, and Hustler Rip Rogers, you can't forget him.
Rip Rogers, absolutely. So then let's take a step further, okay? So you grew up watching Memphis wrestling, watching these local promotions. What brought you into, well, I guess we need to start with what started you training? Where did you train at? How did you get to starting training? Obviously, you couldn't just get on the internet and Google, where can I train for professional wrestling? How did that grow?
You're right, because we didn't have that was BC. That was before cell phones. That was before anything. We had the phone book and Sears and Roebuck catalog and all that stuff. So you're exactly right. I couldn't Google it. One of my first introductions to a live show, I had heard that the Memphis group, Jarrett Promotions, with Eddie Marlin and that bunch, was coming to Lincoln County High School in Stanford, which is right up the road from where I grew up. I grew up on a little farm that's right where Pulaski County, Lincoln County, and Rockcastle County all come together. So Lincoln County High School, I knew that was not too far away. So I thought, if I get there early, maybe I can help set up the ring. So sure enough, there's Eddie Marlin, and I introduced myself, and I think for helping set up and tear down the ring, I got free admission that night, and Lawler was on the card, and some other guys, maybe Tracy Smothers, and I can't remember all of them, but they were there. So my first payoff at a wrestling show was free admission and a hot dog and a Coke, which I was thrilled. So
shooting today's standards, that's $35. You made out good that night.
yeah, and I didn't realize it. Might have been better than some of the boys. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. So that was when I was still in high school, and then I also became aware of a local promotion, Mid-Continental Wrestling Association, owned by Dale Mann, and there was a friend of mine, Harrison Melton, that worked for Dale, and he was also with me at Pulaski County High School. So anyhow, I think I bugged him and enough, because he was wrestling, and now this is after high school, but that is the connection and how I got in to Mid-Continental Wrestling Association with Dale Mann, and so you go there and started training. That's kind of a long way around the barn. Did I answer your question?
I know, absolutely. That was exactly what I was reaching for there. So you started training with Dale Mann. How long did you start training before you finally were able to get in the ring for your first match?
That was probably about 3 months, in that neighborhood. Of course, Dale did some. He oversaw a lot. He got in the ring some, but some of the other wrestlers would come in and do different things, whether it be hammerlock, hip tosses, arm drags, and that sort of thing, and bumps and hitting the ropes and just all the stuff that goes into it. And I just loved it. I mean, just loved it. I was sore as could be. Couldn't hardly get out of bed after the first or second. But man, you sink or swim, and I did my best to swim.
Now, how was that? Once a month, once a week? What kind of time are we talking?
It varied. Normally, I'd go out there once a week, sometimes twice a week. A ring was set up in a garage right off the town square there in Jamestown, and so it was an auto mechanic garage, and they had the ring set up in there, and so you get some training there, and then of course I don't know how it is nowadays, but back in my day, everybody had to pay their dues and help set the ring up and tear the ring down, and you get there hours before the show starts, and you know, get some workouts in.
Absolutely. So I get this kind of plays into we're building from the ground up,
Okay.
And so now you're here, you're starting your dream. You always wanted to be a wrestler. Now you're getting to be a wrestler. This may be a question. I don't know if you want to answer this or not. Did your initial, I'm not talking, looking back on life. I'm talking once you got in there and you started training, did it live up to the hype? Or were you like, man, I don't know if I can do this or not?
Oh, no, I was going to do it. It didn't matter, it would have to put me in a hospital bed to take me out of it, because, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Couldn't get enough of it. If I could have trained every day, I would have. And my mom thought I'd lost my mind, and
Yep.
I think someday she still think I'm looking for it. But people gotta, you only like I told them more than once, you only live once. I don't want to end up in a rocking chair wondering what if. Well, you know what? I don't have to wonder what if. I know, because I got privilege and joy of doing it for a decade. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was an absolute blast. I loved it. And so, yeah, I remember one time I went with them to Bowling Green, and they, set up the ring early. So I'm getting in there, and this old, crusty old-timer, man, he climbed in there, and I believe it was 36 hip tosses straight that I took, and I was just about looking for a trash can to puke in, but I didn't, because I didn't want to, so I think they finally got tired, because it wasn't just him, there was 2 or 3 of them. I get up, take a hip toss, 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 and man alive, thank God I didn't eat a pizza right before I did that, or I would have. But it was they put you through the ringer. They want to find out, how tough are you? How bad do you want it? Are you going to quit? So that was just one example. There's others, but, to where they just pound. Can you take it? Can you take it? How bad do you want it?
And that's something, too, that a lot of people don't realize. It's not just, how physically fit are you or how conditioned are you. There's something that a lot of us talk about in the wrestling world called ring shape.
That's right.
And that's something that was, a big hurdle for me when I first started, because I was like, oh, yeah, I'm in shape, I run, I work out, I can, I'm not going to have any problem with this. And then within, like, the first 2 minutes, I'm gassed. So, it's such a different, not only are you running and you're constantly in motion, you're constantly taking those bumps on the canvas, which, are mini car crashes every single time you take them. And it's an adjustment on the body, and it's something you have to learn how to pace yourself.
That's right. It's like human chess. You got to be thinking, as many steps ahead as you possibly can. You don't, because you don't know what's around the corner. So, and as you're learning, you really don't know.
Yeah.
So you just take it as it comes, and some of it's mighty tough. So, sometimes you just got to grin and bear it. Thank you very much. May I have another? And go right on.
Yeah. It's that's. So, all right, now we're gonna fast forward, and then we might wind back up a little bit.
Okay.
So, for people that don't know, and honestly, I don't know a lot about this, tell me about Danny Steamboat. Who was he? Maybe how did it start? How did it take shape? Because I think, if I'm correct, you're probably most known for Danny Steamboat, correct?
Yes, definitely in in the southern Kentucky region, yeah, without a doubt, because that's what it was, you know. And I had starting out, you know, I wouldn't have cared if they called me Mud. I was just happy to get in the ring, you know. What's that old saying? You know, just don't call me collector. Of course, that's non-existent anymore. Don't call me, you know, late for dinner and different things. But I couldn't care less what they call me. I was just happy to have an opportunity to start to try to follow my dream. And so Danny Steamboat, Dale Mann gave me that name because he himself, you know, thought highly of, you know, the Steamboat name. Ricky Steamboat. Before Ricky Steamboat, there was Sam Steamboat, okay? And he's an even older timer, Sammy Steamboat. So, and I didn't know this at the time. I found it later on, you know. And I mean, my goodness, at the time, I didn't know Ricky Steamboat's shoot name. You know, I didn't know. So yes, I was, you know, got my red tights from Carl and Hildegard Wrestling Wear, K&H. I can't remember the town in Ohio, but anyhow, that's where you ordered them. And then BA boots, you got the white boots, and I was off and running. And then in March of '89, I had my first match ever at Sammy's Auction House in Corbin, Kentucky. So March of '89 started my decade from '89 to '98.
So, all right, let's go all the way then. Let's go all the way to '98. Why did you stop?
Shoulder injury. I was in a tag match in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and you know, it's just one of those freak things. I, you know, taken a backdrop out over the top, out onto the floor a bunch of times. But the last time I did it, you know, hook, go over, my thumb got hung in the apron, and when my body rotated over, my arm, you know,
stayed on the apron.
Stayed on the apron, and it spun it out of socket. And as a matter of fact, the ref came down to the floor, and he said, "You want me to stop it?" And I said, "Not yet," because I knew I'd never had a shoulder dislocated before. You know, it was totally new to me. I just knew something was wrong. I didn't know how bad. Well, I was able to pull myself up on the apron, and I laid on the apron, and then as I rolled, I don't know why I did it, I just did it. I rolled under the bottom rope, and when I did, I must have put enough pressure on it just right. It popped back in, and I finished the match. And so that was that. But ever since, immediately after that happened, of course, you know something's wrong. You know you're not supposed to feel that way. It's not supposed to look that way. So, you know, it hurt like the dickens. But at least I had the pressure off of it from where it popped back in.
Yeah.
And, of course, I never had injury like that, so it was a learning experience. So then you find out, you know, once that shoulder joint pops out, because the shoulder is just like a ball on the edge of a cliff. You know, it's not a tight ball and socket joint. It's more or less a boulder on the edge of a cliff that's ready to fall out. So the joint was loosened, and then it didn't take long. You know, something else will happen, and you know, it might pop back out, and then my last match was in Glasgow, Kentucky, and took a double clothesline over the top out on the floor, and as I was pushing myself up off the floor to get up off the floor to stand up, another wrestler landed on me and drove me straight down to the floor that I didn't see coming. And when it did, it popped it out really good. And that was UCW promotion from Terry England, the promoter. So that popped it out real good. So good that I couldn't get it back in. As a matter of fact, I had to take an ambulance ride to T.J. Sampson Hospital in Glasgow, and I'll never forget the doctor's name that put it back in. Dr. Hogan. I don't remember his first name. I just remember his last name was Hogan.
He didn't give you a brother now.
Yeah, brother, you're going to have to bite on this towel. So, because he wanted to give me, painkiller, and I said, I got to drive. And I said, I can't. He goes, do you think you can take it? I said, well, we're going to just have to try and see. So he goes out to the nurse's station, and he said, I've never seen this before, but we're going to try it. This guy thinks I can put his shoulder back in without any pain meds. And so he comes in and puts me in what we would call a top wrist lock. And he raises up and drops it back in, and I don't remember everything I said. It probably wasn't too nice, but anyhow, he considering the circumstances, he understood and didn't take it personal, and my shoulder was back in, and I was able to drive back home. So that's what took me out of the business.
And what year was that?
1997. Yeah, that was 97. That's when I had to take the emergency ride to the hospital in the ambulance. So then I did therapy after that, and then I did some stuff in Tennessee after that, but it came out again. And then what I didn't realize, the very last time it came out, I was playing volleyball of all things. And I went up and spiked the ball. I thought I'd done enough therapy and enough weightlifting and everything to tighten the shoulder back up. So I'm playing volleyball, and I go up and I spike it, and my arm just comes down and starts slinging. So, but it was so loose that I could just walk over to the wall in the gym we were in and put pressure against the wall and pop it back in. And at that point, I knew surgery was it.
So if anybody out there wants a new tennis partner, it is not going to be Mr. Dan Childers.
No, that's okay. But I had surgery on 9/9 of 99, so that's an easy date to remember. 9/9 of 99, I went under the knife and got it repaired. So I can play tennis. There's another reason they may not want me as a partner, probably because I stink, but I'm no good at tennis, but I would try.
All right, so we've went from the start, we've went to the end. Now we're gonna hit it somewhere in the middle. This is I purposefully, you and I have had a couple conversations over the past couple of weeks, and I purposefully haven't asked too many questions about this because I was really excited to talk about this. Before we do, though, we're gonna take just a quick 5-minute break, and I see a few comments over here. We're gonna hit those up really quick. Matthew Burry said, "What's up?" It's not really a question, but yeah, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Nick Himes, thank you. And glad you were enjoying the podcast. Of course, we have Aaron Rose. Hey guys. James Adam. Hi guys.
Hello.
And here's the first question. Matthew Burry says, "Have you ever wrestled at OVW?"
I have not.
How big was OVW in the mid to late 90s when you were wrestling?
I don't know what year OVW started, but so when I had the shoulder injury, and then from that point my wrestling was sporadic, because I was doing therapy to try to get it stronger, and I'd come back and something would happen, and I'd come back and something would happen, and then finally it just got so loose that, you had to hang it up because, you had surgery and so forth. But I think, what year did OVW start? Does anybody know?
I do not know.
I
I'm
think
sure.
it was
96, maybe?
95, 96.
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
So in other words, it was in the infancy then at that point in
It
time.
was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just.
But some of the guys that I wrestled with, like Chris Michaels and some of those guys, that Sean Casey and different ones of that generation, they were able to get in there and work with guys that went on, help develop them and train them, and a lot of those big household names owe a lot to those guys, considering how much they worked with them and helped them when OVW was in its infancy.
All right, that actually leads in, but I got to hit one more thing because I knew Bobby Blade was going to end up coming up with some kind of piece of information. 9/9/99 was the day that Dreamcast was released. The Dreamcast game console was released on 9/9/99.
So you share history with Dreamcast.
Oh.
Yeah, we can count on Bobby. And I'll tell you something else that Bobby Blade, the illustrious Lone Wolf, Super Bad Simba, whatever. I don't know how many names he's got, but the music that Memphis Wrestling would play when they would go to a commercial break is called Russian Dressing. And I was hoping, I didn't know how all this would work because this is new to me. But the little snippet from 11 seconds to 31 seconds, that 20-second snippet, if anybody hears that, it'll immediately take them back to Memphis Wrestling.
Hold on.
Because that is what it was. Walter Murphy, Russian Dressing. If you're looking it up, Walter Murphy, I believe, is the name. Russian Dressing.
Walter Murphy, and you said it was from what to
11
what?
seconds to 21 seconds. See if you can find that. But we've got to give Bobby Blade credit for finding that. And I mean, he's quicker than a hiccup. It didn't take him any time when I asked him.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready. There it is. We've got to take a quick commercial break, Lance. We'll be right back.
And this Bobby Blade knew this off the top of his head.
He did. He did. Mad props to the Bladester.
You can always count on Bobby Blade.
Oh, man.
All right.
Can you?
Reeling it back in here.
Okay.
You mentioned two names that actually plays perfectly in with what I was going to ask you. So, Sean Casey and Chris Michaels, two guys. I know. I know Chris Michaels really well. I've worked with Sean a few times, but they are two guys that, especially in this area, or if you're familiar with early TNA, you know the name Chris Michaels. You know who Sean Casey is. They have worked around this area for years.
Yeah.
What? There's several questions all built into a bigger question here. Let's talk about those two. Let's talk. I know from the brief talks that we've had, you tagged with Chris Michaels, correct?
Yes. Chris and I, we went up and down the road together and had a lot of fun working for Dale. We had USA Main Event Wrestling down there in Bowling Green and Mid-Continental, MWA. The acronym, the three letters MWA, those, a lot of people still remember that, And, Chris and I, we wrestled Hit Squad, Hitman Tony, Hitman Louie, and we wrestled Kubla Khan, the Khans. And as a matter of fact, in Bowling Green, we built up to a big cage match down there, and man, Bowling Green was so much fun. I mean, people were lining the wall. I mean, it was fun. It's fun to wrestle in front of a packed house. The building wasn't real big, but man, it was. What's the word I'm looking for? It was not cozy's not the right word, but I mean it was
snug.
Snug.
It was snug.
Shoulder to shoulder. I mean, it was. It wasn't a big building, but it was big enough. You know, they probably had, I don't know, 350, something like that. I mean, it was packed, and it was a lot of fun. Chris could go. You know, Todd Morton came in some, just different ones coming through. But it was what a fun time. But yeah, Chris is he stood the test of time. Yeah, my hat's off to him. I'm just, matter of fact, I hope to see him here in a few weeks. And every time, I see him, he always gives me a big hug, and we, chit chat and catch up. So it's always good.
I really enjoy Chris. Probably one of the first times I shared a locker room with him. I walked in the locker room, and Chris Michaels is laying on the floor with his feet up on the chair, and he's asleep. We are mid-show, and he is so relaxed. I'm sitting there, I probably walked outside to pace back and forth for a few minutes and come back in. He's asleep.
Yeah.
That is how calm, cool, and collected he is about wrestling. If you've been around and done as much as Chris has, you're pretty calm.
Oh yeah,
But,
he's done a lot more than I ever did.
What? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say he was probably laying there thinking, go ahead, kid, you've got enough nerves for both of us. So he might as well, take a cat nap.
Now talking about him and Sean, what was let's pick one. What was one of your favorite memories, either with or against one of them? What stands out to you?
Well, it would be Chris, because Sean came and he would come in and out more, whereas Chris was more of a mainstay when I was there.
Yeah. Now
I'm sure there are times when Sean came in week after week after week for a longer period of time, but maybe I wasn't there. Because we all, we work for different promotions. You come and, talent comes and goes. If you stay in one place too long, you get stale, you need to leave. You gotta go so you can come back and be fresh. So as a matter of fact, down in UCW for Terry England, Chris and I had a program against each other. So that was interesting.
Was it more often than not you were with him rather than against him?
More often with him, yes. Because Dale really liked us as a tag. We and we did good business. We had a lot of fun. My goodness, looking back, I didn't realize how good we had it. Some of the talent we got to be in the ring with. Because it's like basketball or anything else. Normally, people rise to the level of their competition. So having good people to be in the ring with does nothing but elevate your own game. It's like in basketball. If you're playing scrubs all the time, how are you going to get any better? Yep. Sometimes you got to take your lumps. So, working with and against guys better than you just does nothing but elevate your own game.
Absolutely. And you worked with a lot of really good people.
Oh, yeah.
What were some of the other, we know Sean, we know Chris. What are some of the other people that you shared the ring with or shared locker rooms with that were just either became or were at the time just amazing talents?
Well, oh my goodness, I've been fortunate to be in the ring with. I wish I'd made a list before I come in here, but you got guys like Tony Falk, you got guys like Paul Diamond of Bad Company with Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka, and Brickhouse Brown, and Tracy Smothers was just awesome to me back in the day, when we had a match in Central City, Kentucky. There's just so many different ones that come down the line. Even when I got to one time I got to go work, I got to wrestle Barry Windham.
That's awesome.
On for WCW, and because sometimes I can slide back into my old W, But WCW, I need to
Now,
enunciate better. But
Was
anyhow,
that the World Championship Wrestling, WCW?
yes,
Okay.
it sure was. And a friend of mine actually told me that he saw me on TV in Germany when he was stationed in Germany in the Army.
That's cool.
So I thought, yeah, Barry beat me in 3 minutes.
But you were worldwide.
But I was, and Barry was cool. He was so cool. He thanked me, and matter of fact, he was like, "Man, it's too bad you're not about 30, 40 pounds heavier." I'm like, yeah, I've never heard that before. Because, life's not fair. Back then, I was doing everything I could, almost, to put on weight. And now I'm doing everything I can to take weight off. If I could have been 235, 240 pounds back then, who knows what could have happened.
Yeah.
But you can't live in the past. But anyhow, to answer your question, those guys, JCIs, Jamie Dundee, he's another one that was around. Ronnie Travis was around back at the time. Billy Travis, I don't know if you remember that name. Just different ones that, and you pick up bits and pieces here and there. And, but yeah, a lot of Doug Vines. Oh my goodness, how can you forget the barroom brawler, Doug Vines? Like I said earlier, he and Jeff Sword were the Devil's Duo in ICW. Back when ICW was going strong, when the Poffos had it here in Lexington. And a little side note about them, I know we're kind of chasing rabbits here, but when I was in it's either 7th or 8th grade, ICW came to Eubank High School and had a show. So, remember me telling you about my old buddy Shannon McKinney? So we managed to talk somebody, I can't remember, it might have been his mom took us over there. Anyhow, we talked somebody to take us to wrestling, because you're too young to drive, too far to walk. So we go to Eubank High School, and next thing you know, I see a camera. So they're taping it for their ICW TV show that, end up showing on Saturday mornings. And so at intermission, they say, any of you kids want to be on TV, come get in the ring. And we're like, man, we get to get up in a real wrestling ring. This is so cool. So sure enough, we did. And there's this lady with a microphone, and, they got the camera in front of us, and how, what's your name, blah, 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 the usual stuff. And so then they asked the question. That was when they were building up to the big match at Rupp Arena between Randy Savage and Jerry Lawler. And, even though I wasn't in the business yet, when they asked the question, so this lady's asking, who do you think's going to win between Randy Savage and Jerry Lawler? And I said, well, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the words exactly. But long story short, I said Jerry Lawler. I said, I like Randy Savage, but I think Lawler's going to show him why they call him the King or something like that, something corny, I'm sure. And sure enough, a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, there I am on TV. But we didn't have enough money. We didn't have a VCR, so. But that is one piece of video I would love to have, is the 7th grade Dan Childers being interviewed on ICW television. I would just love that if I could find that. It was, and from what I hear, they did a lot of dubbing over, so they may have dubbed right over it, and it may even be non-existent. But another piece of trivia that is fun is the fact that the lady that was interviewing me was Miss Elizabeth.
Oh, wow. That is neat.
And I didn't know it at the time, but she would go on to marry Randy Savage, Randy Poffo, and become Miss Elizabeth in the WWF, what is now WWE, but was WWF at the time.
That's neat.
So how about that for a 7th grader?
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
Hey,
think?
I got to do this one time. Superfly.
That's right.
Now, do you think that moment in the ring as a 7th grade Dan Childers is maybe what sparked your, drive to be a professional wrestler?
It sure didn't hurt it, I'll tell you that. No, I was climbing through those ropes felt like home. No, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
So, tell me now, what you were wrestling in 89 through you wrestled through the 90s.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah, most of the 90s. What how has independent wrestling changed in 30 years?
Not much. No.
I'm not trying to date you. I'm just curious. I know the business changes so much. It
Yeah.
is so different
It adapts.
even in 20 years, even in 10 years. It has changed so much to what we see today as a super media saturated, as example here at this podcast, a super media saturated place. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a bad thing what the business was in the 90s. I just want to know what have you seen in your own, being in the business then, and then now, even though you're not an active wrestler, you're still around the wrestling scene. You're still down at UCW, you're still down at AMW, you're still at EWA. You're seeing what's going on. You're still kind of behind the scenes of what goes on. How has that changed?
Well, it all depends on which angle and which aspect you want to look at it from. But I would say, and Johnny mentioned, I guess, athletics and stuff. There's a lot more higher risk takers now than I think there were back in the day. A lot more, what are they called? Topes?
Topes.
Topes.
Yeah, topes, dives.
Yeah, dives.
Suicidas.
Yes. A lot more of that stuff than there was. And there's different schools of thoughts. Like, is too much of something oversaturating, or do people get desensitized to it because they see it and they see it and they see it, or is it the type of thing that I remember, I think it was Harley Race when he won one of his world championships. He pinned the guy with a suplex. What would the fans do if somebody did a normal, slow over suplex, 1, 2? I mean, people would freak out. They'd be like, "What is that?" So I mean, things evolve, things change, and you can either accept it, you can try to butt heads with it, you can take it for what it's worth. Some change is really, really good, and some is not. But I would say the athleticism with people, the amount that you see people jumping inside the ring, from the inside the ring to outside on the floor, you see that a whole lot more than you ever did back in my day.
Do you think, and this is all opinion, we're not going to hold you to any of this.
Okay.
I might, but Johnny definitely won't.
Thanks, Johnny.
You're welcome.
But do you think that wrestling in the 80s and 90s was dominated by a lot larger people than we see in today's wrestling? Do you think that may have
so.
something to do with it?
Yes, I do. I really do. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had people say, if you were about 30 or 40 pounds heavier, man, and I'm like, well, so life's about choices and decisions, and that's one that I didn't do, and I don't regret. But it is what it is.
How was working for WCW? How was it? Did you only do the one?
I
one time?
only did the one. I remember, we were in Kansas City, and I remember walking out, and I had never seen so many TV cables in one place in my entire life. I mean, I was stepping over them to go out the curtain, out to the ring, and once you get in the ring, of course, 3 minutes is 3 minutes. To some people, 3 minutes is a lifetime. To other people, it's snap your fingers and you're done. You're headed to the back. But, the ring still had 3 ropes and 4 sides. That was something. And I don't know how many people were there. Probably 7,000, 8,000 people. That was fun, walking out and seeing, that many eyeballs looking back at you. And, but that was just the production, nowadays everybody is talked about the gorilla position where you're, waiting to go out and you see that and all that. Because back in the day, and I know independents have gorilla position now, but back in the day they didn't. You had locker room.
And then you had the curtain.
You either had music or you didn't have music,
Yeah.
And Bill Dundee. That's another guy that was my tag team partner for about 3 months in Bowling Green. We did a little program, and I remember where were we? We were somewhere in southern Kentucky one time, and the guy comes in the locker room and says, "Bill, you got your music ready?" And Bill said, "My music will start when I get in the ring." I'm like, "All right." Because, he's Bill Dundee. Nobody needed intro music for him. As soon as he came through the curtain, everybody knew who Bill Dundee was.
That's right.
And that's just another example of how vastly different today's day and age versus, back in the day. Bill Dundee was known. He didn't have to have anything when he walked through that curtain. It was either cheers or boos. They knew exactly what to expect.
They sure did.
From that, and honestly, that goes for a lot of people. I take an interesting perspective to wrestling as a whole, but I think there's a lot of people, old and new both, that when properly done well, they're known for who they are. A good example I have of that is Stan Sierra.
Oh yeah.
While I for the short period of time that I've been in wrestling, like that theme song comes on and immediately I can feel it. But he could walk out of that curtain with absolutely zero music, and the absolute shower of boos that would ensue from him just walking out of the curtain is incredible, and that is him. That is him doing him well.
Yes.
Stan Sierra is one hell, and that's not knocking anybody else. That was just the first person that came to mind.
Well,
Stan does stand very, very well.
And there's a reason he came to mind, because he does what he does, and he does it very, very well. He's, as far as the independent scene goes, he is tops.
Absolutely.
And if anybody is listening to this and you see him listed as coming to your town, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't go see him.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that's what's so awesome about independent wrestling. It's you have these people, and maybe Stan Sierra, maybe we'll get the call, maybe you won't, but you see these people like Carson Drake, right? I started training. My first week of training was Carson's third week of training. And now he's got the call from NWA, he's a bona fide NWA superstar. So, and that's, again, just the first person that came to mind, but there's all these people. We have an independent wrestling that you can go right down the road and watch.
Yeah.
The business has changed in that aspect where we are all over the place all the time. That's the big thing right now. Everybody tells you to go as many places as you can and get in front of that many eyeballs, which means we're in front of that many eyeballs. It's just right down the road, I guarantee, from anyone to go watch independent wrestling, and you are going to see some amazing wrestling, some amazing stories, but you're going to see some of the people that are either on TV, were on TV, are shaping the next generation of TV stars.
Right.
And that's what I think all of us, deep down, whether your Dan Childers starting in, 89, or your Adrian Alexander, wrestling now, I think the end goal for everybody is, I want to be in front of those eyeballs on TV. Mm-hmm. And everybody's got different goals and different things in mind. But that is the mecca of all of it, right? And as a wrestling fan, you enjoy watching wrestling on TV. So where do you start? You start with the independent wrestling right there. You watch those people that are gonna be on TV. They're shaping on TV. That's where all of this starts. It's where all of this is made, and that's what makes professional wrestling so incredible. You have a 1 in a million chance of going to a high school basketball game and seeing an NWA or an NBA, future NBA star. But you've got a 1 in 10 chance of coming to a independent wrestling show and seeing somebody that is going to be on TV one day.
Yeah.
And that's what's incredible. And of course, I'm biased here for many, many reasons, but I think in independent wrestling, you can find so many interesting things. You can find so many interesting angles, so many interesting superstars right here in independent wrestling. And then the nice thing about independent wrestling is that you can find your flavor. I say this about a lot of stuff, but I actually stole this from somebody. But wrestling is like ice cream, an ice cream shop. Everybody's got their flavor they like. Some people are mint chocolate, some people are chocolate chip, some people are vanilla. But it's all what makes up the ice cream shop. The ice cream shop wouldn't be the ice cream shop; it only served vanilla. So you find independent wrestling isn't just your TV wrestling where you have one style that you can watch and enjoy. You can really find what you enjoy. Whether it's the old Memphis style wrestling, and I say old Memphis style wrestling because but the Memphis style wrestling, whether it's, more lucha, whether it's more hardcore, there are so many different places that specialize in so much that you can really find your niche as a professional wrestling fan in these independent wrestling programs. And it's incredible. I could go all night just on this alone,
Exactly.
but I won't take time away from Dan. But I wanted to touch on this because I wanted to draw it all back to today.
Well, it's true. And, I mean, whether it is, EWA or whether it's UCW, USWF, TCW, I mean, New South, there's a lot of variety out there that people can go check out and see some awesome
Elite Wrestling Alliance in Frankfurt, second Saturday of the month. That's not just a cheap plug.
There you go.
But that is a great promotion, though.
Now, wait a minute. I didn't hear that. What was that again?
That is a great promotion, though. I mean, I'm telling you, if they ain't been going down the Elite Wrestling Alliance, they need to. Because you're going to see a lot of great action, great talent.
You might even see Dan Childers walking around.
Hey, that's
somewhere.
true. We have been seeing Dan Childers out there doing his thing. It may not be doing the side ring, but you never know. You might be looking around the ring. You might be seeing Dan Childers at the merch table.
You never know. You might see Adrian Alexander.
That's true,
you
too.
You might see Superfly flying around.
That's right. You see all kinds.
Yeah.
NiceGuyAndy will be there.
That's right.
Here. Well, let's just go ahead and plug this show. February 10th, EWA comes back to Thornhill Education Center with EWA Prime 006 Hostile Takeover.
I can't believe that Ben Sheeran actually went through and said, nope, I'm not keeping that agreement. I'm not going to be biased. I'm going to be biased towards my crew. Wow.
I'm telling you, if you missed January, you missed a wild, wild ride. EWA is turning it up a notch, and I am so, so excited to see what is coming next in February. I guarantee you're not going to want to miss it, and we'll let in on another little exclusive here.
Uh-oh.
This one is about to be officially announced, but we'll go ahead and announce it on the podcast now. Elite Wrestling Alliance is coming to Richmond, Kentucky.
Nice.
March 30th at the Telford YMCA. Keep your eyes peeled on Facebook. Keep them out for posters popping up around Richmond and the surrounding areas. But March 30th, Colonel Clash, we are coming to the Telford YMCA. I am super, super excited about that show. It's in front of new people, new fans, new faces. We're bringing together a super show, if you will, of wrestling talent from all over the state, all over the surrounding states. And you're not going to, if you are anywhere within driving distance of Richmond, you're not going to want to miss this.
Exactly.
Superfly, that makes you want to just break out and start singing YMCA.
It does.
YMCA.
You know
Richmond,
who does?
Kentucky.
You know who does go to YMCA? Nice Guy Andy.
Nice Guy Andy. Yeah, see, Nice Guy Andy could be doing the YMCA right now.
Exactly.
That's what he's doing.
Wow.
He's at home, isn't he? Isn't he doing the YMCA?
Yep. I can hear it right now. Him doing the YMCA
in Richmond,
Kentucky.
Guys, we will we're gonna take another quick commercial break to talk about some more comments that have popped up. We're also keep in the back of your mind here at it'll probably be at about 9:30. We're going to be, maybe if we get a little quicker, we might be a little sooner than that, but we're gonna be answering some phone calls. Seeing if people have questions. If they have questions, they can call in. Is that correct? They can call in.
If they can. You can also put your phone to a Bluetooth right through there.
Oh, I don't know if we want to do that. You got your phone, Johnny, right?
Yeah.
You got to connect. All right.
Yeah,
they can call in. We'll it'll probably be at the 9:30 half hour. They can call in and ask some questions. We also have the chat open for questions. Anybody has any questions, I'll be taking another one of these breaks to look over and see what we've got and kind of run down that, and Mr. Dan Childers will answer any and all questions to his best of his ability.
Put a good disclaimer on there. I don't know that I can answer all of them. Man, that's a pretty tall order. All of them, they say never say all, never say never. So somewhere in between, we'll give it the old schoolboy try.
If not, we'll tag in Johnny and he can answer it.
Yeah, I might have to take a powder.
But let's go ahead and go to those comments really quick. Let's see here. Mr. Ray Owens from Buxom Muck said, mine and Dan's first conversation ever was talking about
the Poffos.
The Poffos.
Great
guy. So there he's putting you over.
Oh, man. Thanks, Ray.
Ray said, I'm from Russell Springs, Jamestown area. Dale Mann used to run MWA shows all the time. So I'm sure he is very familiar with what we're talking about.
He sure did.
Really Mysterious on YouTube said, word on the street is you're a nice guy.
Huh.
At
least that's what my YouTube feed says. We are on the Nice Guy Andy podcast.
So Bandil had to chime in with them.
They're talking about Andy or me?
They're talking about Andy.
Oh, that's what I thought, yeah.
Bandil had to chime in with them to let them know.
Right.
We sure are really mysterious. We are Nice Guy Podcast, but tonight our good friend Adrian is doing a show within our sacred walls.
Here at the Nice Guy Andy podcast studio, I cannot thank these guys enough for allowing me this space to be able to do Talking in Circles. We are, just part of the way through this, and I'm just so excited to be able to do this. This has been a dream of mine for a while now, and I haven't exactly had the time or the space to be able to do something like this. So this is absolutely incredible experience. It's been absolutely incredible so far with Mr. Dan. It's absolutely incredible to have Johnny here and Andy and Sean Johns in spirit. Let's go on.
This is awesome. This is a blast. We're on circle number 17, I think, right?
Absolutely. Hey, you talked about it earlier. You were going, and we're just talking in circles. That's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point. Really Mysterious said he also saw the WWF on TV that time with Bob Backlund, a young Hulk Hogan, and the Wild Samoans and Killer Khan.
That's right.
And also AWA with Jesse Ventura and Adrian Adonis tagging. Greg Gain, Nick.
Great Gagne.
Okay.
Gagne.
Yep. Yeah.
Nick.
Like Vern Gardner.
Bachwinkle, Madman.
Bajan.
I'm not going to butcher these names. Baron Von Ratchke, Big John Stud, Jerry Blackwell, Bobby Duncombe, Ken Patera, and Tito Santana.
Arriba.
That's right. Arasa.
Said he wrestled in high school. 3 minutes was a long time. Then you had one break and another 3-minute round. And Really Mysterious also said, I prefer the older days of wrestling before they had their entrance music. That stuff on all of the talkings is just time-wasting filler, and there's much less actual wrestling being done.
Fun fact, Gorgeous George was the first one to have wrestling theme music, and it was Pomp and Circumstances. Same thing that Ric Flair and Macho Man use.
Yeah.
Variations.
Savage,
And Braxton Hunley said, my guys, how are you all?
A.K.A. Tuffy Jr.
Tuffy Jr. That is one man that I will steer clear of his open hand.
Yep.
If he is anything like his father, I will steer very clear of those chops. Miss Casey Atwood said, what is a piece of wrestling wisdom that you can give younger wrestlers? I feel like it's a really good one to cap off the show, but we'll do this mid-show here.
Oh, man. Repeat that one more time, please.
What is one piece of wrestling wisdom that you could give to younger wrestlers?
You know, I just asked that so I could take a little longer to think. You know that, right? So
deflection. It is great deflection.
Well, thanks to her for the question. Great question.
Should we circle back around at the end of the night and think you might have formulated a better piece of advice, or you want to roll with it?
We'll roll with it. Slow down. When you think you're going too slow, slow down some more, because they get in a hurry and they just need to slow down, take a breath, relax, and get your head straight and your mind straight, and what's that old saying about a snake? The body follows the head. So if you get your head right, everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely.
So yeah, guys want to get in there and go 100 miles an hour, and the audience just they want to be involved. So don't run off and leave them behind.
Absolutely.
Great advice.
Bobby Blade.
Uh-oh.
We got a comment here. All right. This will be my last comment of this segment, or my last thing that I read off of this segment. Keep bringing the comments in, but we'll revisit them again later on. So this will be the last one. It'll set us up into the next segment of the show. So Bobby Blade said he has 2 points here. 1, what was Dan's favorite match that he ever had? This is kind of a two-part here. What stood out about it, and what made it his favorite? So first off, what was your favorite match, and then why? This is one of those like high school essays, essay questions.
That's true.
Wow. Well, that is so hard. Bobby, the next time I see you, you've got it coming, Pally. And he knows who used to say Pally back in the day, which was actually before both of our times. I just kind of borrowed it. This is not the only one, but it's one of the first ones that come to mind, is when I got to wrestle Tracy Smothers. He was awesome. What can you say? He was just great to me when he didn't have to be, because you got to think, here we are in Western Kentucky about to have a match, and I'm looking at this guy, and he's been to Japan, he's done, he's been there, done that, held titles everywhere he's gone, and I mean, legit tough dude. He knew he could handle himself.
I mean, he fought a bear, so I mean,
Yeah.
you got to be pretty tough.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason that question is hard to answer is because you've got singles. Was it my favorite singles match? Was it my favorite tag match? Was it, down in Tennessee, I had a blast in a couple of cage matches. You know, I believe it or not, a lot of people didn't like working with him, but Gypsy Joe was. I got to work with him, and everybody. His chops are. I mean, he would chop guys, and when they held their chest and bent over, he'd chop them on the back. I mean, he'd chop them coming and going. But the thing of it is, he was always super good, nice to me, and I think a lot of it goes back to respect. I respected him. I appreciated the road that he had traveled, and because I didn't see him when he was on his way up. I saw him, later on in years, and he just, down in Tennessee, we'd sit in the back and talk, and so he's an old timer. Gypsy Joe was good to me. But just so many different ones, the tag match Chris and I had against a variety of opponents. I mean, with Terry Adonis and whoever his tag team partner was at the time, or with Hitman Tony and Hitman Louie. We drew good money with all those guys, and it was always fun. But one that really stood out because. Tracy did the favor for me. He didn't have to, but he was teaching me that how business needs to be done, and so I really, and then, we'll just leave it at that.
All right, so the second part of Bobby Blade's question was, what was a dream match that you wished you could have had with anyone? It could be somebody that is still wrestling, could be somebody that's retired, could be somebody that, anybody that you wish you could have wrestled, but now obviously for many, many reasons you can't.
I would have liked to have worked with Lawler.
Lawler.
Yeah.
Why? Just out of curiosity.
Well, a big part of it has to be the fact of Saturday morning TV. I wrestled his son, Brian, at the Boyle County Fairgrounds.
Brian.
Brian Christopher. Yeah, semi-main. The main event was Lawler and George Weingroff. George doing the Sheiky thing, but yeah, and that place was, it was an outdoor fair show, and to be able to work with Brian, semi-main, and, it made it easy because he was still, hot on TV.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, I heard that there were over 4,000 people in the bleachers because they have it out there where they, on a different night there might be tractor pulls or whatever,
yeah.
But they had the ring set up out there. It wasn't under a little pavilion; it was out there in the grandstand.
Yeah.
And my goodness, what a crowd they had there! But it was a lot of fun. I've been in the ring got to be in there with Jeff Jarrett. I remember the very first time I was in a battle royal with Jeff, and he sent me airborne. I won't forget that. He's like, "Time to fly, brother," and here we go. So, but yeah, Jeff was super. Just so many, when you stop and think about it, just so many different ones down through the years that, my goodness, it's almost like you have to pinch yourself. Like, I really got to do this with some of this talent. It's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Exactly.
A lot of fun.
Let's play off that Jerry Lawler thing. We talked about this. Earlier. Tell me the story, or tell everybody watching the story, because you told Johnny and myself earlier. Tell us the story about announcing at Louisville Garden, the famous wrestling arena, the Louisville Gardens. Tell us that story.
Yes. Dean Hill was the voice of the Louisville Gardens for, a long time. And I don't know all the details, but I know that he was on a break. He'd stepped away for a little bit. And I guess they had different people, come in and out. And I don't even remember how they got my name. But I know they, one of the first things they asked me, do you have a nice sweater and dress pants or whatever, And I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, well, just wear that next week. And, do you think you can, how do you feel about announcing? Of course, I'm not going to, yeah. Shoot, yeah, I can do it.
It's a Louisville Garden.
It's an opportunity, too.
No problem. And so anyhow, here we go, and announcing different ones, and of course I'm thinking, yeah, this is probably a one and done, like Cal's Cats before Coach Cal ever was the coach, many years before him. I just thought I'd be one and done. And they're like, well, can you come back next week? And I'm like, okay, yeah. So, I should have kept better records. That's one thing I wish two things I wish I'd have done in my little decade that I was in the business is I wish I'd taken more pictures with there's so many guys, and I didn't want to feel like a fan. But we didn't have cell phones back then.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to say, hang on a second, can I go get my Polaroid camera and take a picture with you? But I wish I'd done that.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd kept more detailed records, because all the records I took was in my date book, where I had to be, how many miles it was, because you had to calculate your mileage for taxes and all that stuff, and, food expenses and all that stuff. But so I don't know how many weeks that I got the privilege of being the announcer in the Louisville Gardens, but man, it was fun. So anyhow, they, a few weeks go by. Well, to get to your question, the main event is they were having a King of the Ring tournament, and the winner gets this ruby and diamond studded ring, and on the ring it says King of the Ring. So anyhow, we're coming out, and they're, here comes, I think it was Eddie Gilbert and Jerry Lawler, if I'm not mistaken. We're in the main event. And, and I can still remember, ladies and gentlemen, in the red corner, 222 pounds from Lexington, Tennessee, hot stuff, Eddie Gilbert. And then, in the blue corner, 234 pounds from Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry the King Lawler, So as I'm getting ready to get out of the ring, Lawler leans over and he goes, I forgot the ring. He said, do me a favor. He said, can you go to the back, go to my dressing room, and in my briefcase is the King of the Ring ring. I need you to go get that for me. So I'm like, sure, yes, sir. I can do that, sir. And so ding, ding, ding. Well, I'm announcing, I'm also ringing the bell. So I'm like, so I have to leave my, I got to get out of here to go get that thing. And
we're not talking, walking 20 feet to the locker room, at these gymnasiums. We're talking the Louisville Gardens.
Yeah, the basement of the Louisville Gardens. So anyhow, I walk, and the whole time I'm walking back, I'm like, is this a rib? Because, I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but, there's maybe been one or two ribs played in the wrestling business down through the years.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them.
So anyhow, I'm thinking, okay, am I going to get back there and there's going to be no ring in this briefcase, or am I, or then what's going to happen if there's no ring? Is somebody going to say, yeah, I saw Dan in Jerry Lawler's briefcase, and the ring's missing. So guess who the last person was we saw in Jerry Lawler's briefcase going for the King of the Ring, ruby and diamond ring. And I was, but so your mind goes, and then I'm thinking, okay, by the time I find it and get back to ringside, are they going to go ahead and have the match already over, waiting on somebody to ring the bell and announce the winner? And so your mind just goes crazy. So anyhow, boy, I'm hot footing it back there and down the steps, and sure enough, right there where he said it was, no rib, everything is good. So I get the ring and bring it back up, and sure, and Lawler looks over at me, and I give him the high sign. Yep, we're good. So anyhow, they go on and do the deal, and then another part I forgot to tell you earlier. Now this is not putting myself over at all. This is just a learning experience, because you take the good with the bad. So the good was I got to do that job, and it was fun. And I'll tell you two things about it. One, we'll finish the Lawler story. So Lawler wins, I announce the winner, So we get in the back, and Eddie Gilbert says, "Hey, Mr. Announcer." I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Now, you seem to announce Jerry Lawler's name with a little more enthusiasm." And I didn't pick up on it. I just was Lexington, Tennessee, hot stuff, Eddie Gilbert, and Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry the King Lawler, But Eddie's like, you need to do us both the same, because we're both in the main event. And I'm like, okay, yes, sir, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I didn't give your name enough gusto on the intro, but it won't happen again. And it didn't, so I made sure, and then another time I was in the ring, and I was announcing the Moondogs match. Do you guys remember the Moondogs?
Yeah.
So, I'm announcing them, and the shorter, chubbier of the Moondogs, Larry Booker, bless his heart, he's passed on. He had, after the intro, the Moondogs are wild, carry these bones, big, cut off jeans and ropes for belt and all this, So anyhow, I can see him coming toward me after the introductions, and I'm like, what is this sucker up to? Well, so I go to step through and go back to the announcer's table. Well, he follows me, and so then I know what's happening. So I start walking past my announcer's desk, like I'm just walking around the ring. So the faster I walk, the faster he walked. So I got this big, wild-eyed moondog chasing the announcer, which played in perfectly to what he's doing, because, it just added to his craziness. So he's chasing. So we go around, and I'm like, heck with this. I dropped down to the floor and slid under the metal barricade. Yeah. And I can hear him say a couple of salty words behind me after I've scooted under there. And I pop up on the other side, and I'm looking at him, and he's like, what's wrong with him? And then he goes back and gets in the ring, and, they have the match. So later on, we get in the back, and he goes, damn, kid. He goes, I would have never thought about sliding under the barricade. That's pretty dang good.
High praise.
Yeah. I said, I had two options, and fortunately, my first option worked. So,
Let me tell you, jumping over the barricade doesn't work really well, especially when you're amped up. 9 times out of 10, I think I've tripped more over the barricade than actually made it over.
Well, back then I weighed like 205 instead of 240. So it wasn't too bad to slide under.
Tony and I'm gonna tell a story. Tony and Tony Corral, back when we were tagging together, were working the Burklow brothers, somewhere in Western Kentucky. I don't remember what promotion it was for. Top Notch Wrestling, that's who it was. And they ended up chasing us out of the building, and Tony went around the barricade somehow to head out the back door, but I missed that gap in the barricade somewhere, and there was two big, beefy boys coming, and I just took a flying leap over that thing, and I made it over the barricade, but I hit something on the floor and just wiped clean out across the floor, and just rolled, got right back up, and I was in front of Tony out the back door, and he said, "Kid, how'd you get out of there so fast?" Oh.
It fit your character, though, at the time.
It worked. I had to get away. I wasn't getting squashed. I got squashed too many times by them in the ring. Tony would say, he'd tag back, he'd tag in, he'd say, "You got him, kid. You got him." Always
roll with it, even if it's by mistake.
That's right. Oh, me. But yeah, that it's stories like that you can look back. I hope that in 10, 15, 20 years, I can be sitting in your position and somebody can be asking me, tell me about all the, and I can just, because I already, here in the just short time that I've wrestled, have this many stories. Hopefully I remember them by then, for as bad as my memory is, but, being able to relive all of these. And that's one of the many reasons why we do what we do. It's the reason we put our bodies through what we put our bodies through. It's all about, at the end of the day, it's being able to look back and remember those. In your case, remember that 3,000-4,000 people there at the Boyle County Fair. It's for me, it's looking back at the 500 and 600 people. At one of my very early on shows, my first show actually out of where I trained at was a battle royal in Evansville, Indiana, or a rumble style royal. Mm-hmm. And I walked out and looked out over the Evansville Coliseum. First time I'd ever been in the Evansville Coliseum, and I was like, wow, this is awesome, It's this cool big building, so much history in the Evansville Coliseum.
If the walls could talk.
Oh, absolutely. And I went down into the basement and I got changed. And then my number, this is the main event, my number's called. I go out and there's 500 people. And for me, who had been in front of 30 and 40 people, now I'm in front of 500. And I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's, I pride myself in not letting me get in my head too much. I don't get those butterflies because I purposefully don't think about it before I go out that curtain.
Yeah.
But that moment where I stood there and I saw that many people in that building gave me butterflies. And there's only been a few times since then that has recreated that. Terry England UCW Caverna show last year, when I went out, and I'm sure he probably had 400 or 500 people there, and just looking out over that. Kyle Maggard, one of his last AMW shows, and I went out of the curtain, and a lot of times, I'm emulating the bad guy, so I don't get that chance to look out over everybody and see that. But, this is one of the rare opportunities that I was the guy everybody was cheering for. So I looked out, and just to hear that place erupt is just an incredible feeling. And that drives us to do what we do. We love telling the stories. We love being that entertainment. We love being able to look back and say, wow, in your case, I was able to tag with Chris Michaels and live my dream. I was able to wrestle and share locker rooms with all of these guys that are wrestling Hall of Famers, legends. In that, it's incredible. It is such an amazing feeling. And that's why I love what I do. That's why I love being able to do this right here, to sit down with somebody and look back on something and be able to say, wow, this was great. This was awesome. These memories here are what makes wrestling special.
That's That's for sure. I mean, there's no two ways about it. That's very true. I mean, you gotta. What is it they say? It's not necessarily the destination. It's you gotta take time to smell the roses along the way. You gotta enjoy the journey, because it's all, it's all part of the story. It really is. And you mentioned UCW there a minute ago on the Caverna show. One of when I got hurt, of course, Terry England is the UCW promoter, and that was, he was a promoter that night where I got hurt in Glasgow. And, tell you a little bit about him. He wrote me a letter and sent me my last payoff in the mail because, by the time I got out at TJ Sampson Hospital there in Glasgow, the building was dark. Everybody, it was wee hours of the morning. Everybody's gone. So there wasn't like I could go back and get paid.
Yeah. He wasn't going to Venmo you or PayPal you or, money.
And I can guarantee you he did not have a good enough homing pigeon or that he could tie it to a bird's leg and fly it down, to my house. So he just, I think it might have been Pony Express he used, but I'm not sure. But anyhow, I'll give him credit. He took care of me there, and I'll never forget that.
Terry England, I think you and I both could go stories and stories and stories about Terry England.
Well,
but
I could too. His voice messages they leave.
Oh, the Terry England voice messages. If I listened to half of Terry England's voice messages, I would know everything there is to know about professional wrestling. But he is an absolute great mind when it comes to promoting, when it comes to building a great show. The Caverna Super Show has been historically over the years just a phenomenal show.
And it's coming back this year, March 9th.
March 9th.
Yeah.
March 9th. That will be the only date that EWA is on the third Saturday because we are working with our partners, UCW and USWF. And we are going to be down there. Myself, I think Marty Clay will most likely be down there. A lot of the EWA guys will also be down there at the Caverna Super Show. I'm sure Dan will probably be making an appearance somewhere in the crowd.
Just like poison ivy all over, I guess.
Dan wants you. He's too humble. He's too humble to tell you this, but Dan wants every single one of you to just bombard him as much as possible. If you see this beautiful face here in the crowd, he wants you to come up and just talk his ear off the entire show.
Wow. No, that's not what I said. I said somebody told me I had a face for radio, and I think they're probably right. But what can you say? But yeah, the cooperation going on there. You got Jimmy Walls and USWF, and of course we've mentioned Terry England already in UCW, and of course Brandon Wilson with TCW.
TCW,
right?
Triple Crown,
And
Triple Crown Wrestling, not traditional championship wrestling. Two different promotions.
Right.
I see those getting confused a lot. The TCW
I've been
moniker.
seeing that a lot too.
And then Kyle Maggard with AMW.
Absolutely.
So just a lot of promoters and promotions that care about putting out a quality product. That way, when the fans show up, the paying spectators that put down their hard-earned money, used to be cash, now it's Venmo, whatever,
Yeah.
What is it, Zelle, Venmo,
Yeah, I think they have Zelle too.
Cash App, whatever it is. They want to make sure that when they leave, they're like, that was money well spent.
Absolutely.
Had a great time, could have done anything but chose to go to the local wrestling show and have a blast.
Did you ever think that you'd see wrestling come together in Kentucky?
Say that again, please.
Did you ever think that you'd see wrestling come together in Kentucky?
What do you think?
Obviously, I am the least qualified person in the room to talk about this, but I think in the past few years, wrestling has drastically changed in Kentucky. My biggest thing when I was
Good
first
question.
when I was first, talking about launching Elite Wrestling Alliance and doing what we do there, my biggest thing was to rejuvenate Kentucky wrestling. There's so much history here. You had the history with Dale Mann running, MWA and USA main event and all that. You've got so much history with Lawler and Savage and the Gilberts, and you just have so much, the Moondogs. There was so much history, and Kentucky used to be a central point for wrestling. Tennessee was the big, the big Memphis wrestling and everything. Kentucky, the Louisville Gardens, everything used to be so big, and we had, as a community, had kind of sunk down the card as far as where you want to go to watch independent wrestling. But here in the past few years, we've had this resurgence. AMW coming back with these big super shows. You've got UCW running the shows. Even Salina, Tennessee is right across the line from Kentucky. But let's count that. You had Salina. You've got the Caverna Super Show. You've got the fair shows that are honestly one of my favorite, as a wrestler, one of my favorite parts of wrestling. We're not wrestling in front of 4,000 people at the fairs like they used to, but the atmosphere in front of 100, 200, 300 people at a fair show is completely different from the atmosphere at just, your local bingo hall.
Yeah.
And I love that fear. I love that atmosphere around carnival wrestling. I know you and I touched on this earlier. The roots of professional wrestling go back to fairs and carnivals.
Yeah.
And so that, it feels like going back to your roots, just like going to the Louisville Gardens, which isn't there anymore, the Evansville Coliseum, which is about to be, they've closed it
right?
down. Yeah, they ran their last wrestling show about a month ago.
I didn't know that.
So, the history and everything involved with that, it's just like going back to the roots with the fair shows. And I love that. So Kentucky,
and they do such a good job. I mean,
absolutely.
Jimmy and Terry, they really do a very good job. I mean, they have more fair shows than any other promotion in the state, right?
Absolutely. And I would dare say, I don't know the numbers, but I would dare say they have probably collectively ran more shows, fair shows than anybody else. They have, in a good way, a stranglehold on the fair scene. And as a result, that almost any fair you go to, you're going to have a good show. You're going to have a good show. There's great talent. There's Marty Clay. There's Carson Drake was on a lot of those fair. He was on the fair tour with me. Stan Sierra, Marcus Johnson.
Adrian Alexander.
I make an appearance from time to time. He just retired, but Vic the Bruiser was on a lot of those fair shows and those festival shows that I was a part of. And a lot of these guys and girls that are grinding. Fair season, for those of you guys that don't know, at least in recent times now, fair seasons are grind. We go from wrestling, 2 to 3 shows a week to maybe 5 or 6 shows a week, because you've got fairs all over the state, all over the surrounding states. Yeah. And you see these men and women that are putting their body on the line in hot and cold and rain and everything. Some of my favorite memories come from fair shows in the rain.
Oh yeah, and when the sun goes down and the dew hits, watch out, slip and slide.
Yeah, but it creates incredible memories. It creates incredible atmospheres. You have a different atmosphere. The kids are all just there. You've got people that don't normally come to independent wrestling shows. You've got the diehard fans that travel from all over, and it all comes together to make the crazy. Did your mom ever cook something and just throw a bunch of stuff in a pot, and they called it glop or goulash, or everybody's got a word for it? That's how I feel that, the fair show scene is, You just throw a bunch of stuff in a pot and stir it around.
It all meshes well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little something for everybody.
No air conditioning in the locker room, But everybody
a whole lot
has
of people,
fun.
their right guard switched to the left. So... But that's okay. That's all part of it.
And
that's right.
That's the fun of professional wrestling at the end of the day. Now,
Especially Kentucky wrestling.
Kentucky
It's
wrestling.
brought everything back together. Nobody realized that Kentucky's starting to resurge.
And then that's what I'm so excited to see, and that's what I hope. I know we're seeing with AMW and with USWF and UCW and those New South and places like that.
Right.
But that's of course, again, near and dear to my heart but EWA, that's what I strive to see, is that Kentucky becomes a hotbed for wrestling once again. That is where, as a wrestler, you want to come to Kentucky to wrestle.
That's right.
And that's only going to benefit the people that live here in this state, because the bigger professional wrestling gets here, the more opportunity you get to see these future stars, to see these people from all across the country. I'm really excited. I know we've got a couple people coming in the next few months to EWA that are out of state, people that you might not normally see without having to travel far away. So it's really exciting to be able to open those doors and build those bridges that then can start being traveled on, because this is, at the end of the day, this is what professional wrestling is about. It's a network. It's growth. It is bringing together people and things and places that wouldn't normally be together to create the perfect concoction, the perfect goulash of wrestling for the fans.
Yeah, that's true. That is, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, it really is something for everybody.
Absolutely. It's the ice cream. It's the end of the day. It's the ice cream.
That's right.
The flavors are there for everyone. Sometimes you find those flavors inside just the professional wrestling show. Sometimes you find them in different shows. But the ice cream is there. Let's take another break. This feels like an organic place to stop for just a second. Guys, if you want to go ahead, the call number is, roll back up to that call number real quick. If you guys want to call in and ask questions live, we may answer them, we may not answer them, we may move them on to the next show. The number is 859-684-9535. Get your questions ready. You can also put the questions in the chat, and we're going to head to those now. DJ Eric said, Lord Adrian, how much to slap that so-called icon into another galaxy? Tonight, Mr. DJ Eric, tonight is going to be an icon-free night. I am not going to address him. I'm not going to talk about him. I am having a very good hour and a half so far of talking to Mr. Dan. I am not going to bring Icon up at the moment.
This one is for tomorrow.
Okay, Chris wants to know, did you do a raffle? That will be tomorrow, Chris. That's right. The nice young men and women here at the Nice Guy Andy podcast studio will be doing that raffle tomorrow. Joey William Lambert says, hey, Mr. Joey.
Hey, Joey.
DJ Eric has come back again and said, I remember a time when I got to watch my favorite tag team wrestle in front of me, Adrian Alexander and Oliver Gunner, a.k.a. The New Era.
There you go.
And, of course, you can't forget about the best manager, and now evil commissioner, Mr. Ben Sheeran, which rounded out the New Era. And the guys behind the scene, I don't think they get enough credit. The New Era would not have been the New Era without a good friend of mine, a childhood friend of Oliver Gunner's, but a good friend of mine and Ben Sheeran's, and that's Mr. Ben William Stratford. He actually created the logo behind the New Era. I'm pretty sure he's the one that actually came up with the name The New Era. He came up with our music. He is an awesome guy, and not to take away from anybody else, but I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. Nobody sees that. They saw us on screen, in the building, but they didn't get to see him. So I just wanted to shout him out. He did a hell of a job. The New Era, honestly, was one of my favorite memories. I say this like I'm not wrestling anymore, but it's so far one of my favorite memories in wrestling. We made such a quick connection. It was something that was, I was coming back to Grindhouse. Oliver was just kind of coming into himself, and Ben was managing him, and they pitched the idea of putting us all together as the New Era, and it fell so well. It wasn't, I've been in tags and factions with people, and you know them, and you show up and you do your thing and you go on, and there's nothing bad with it, but there's not that connection. Yeah. We found that connection, And that's what was so awesome about what we did. It was fun. It was easy. We had a blast. We knew Oliver and I were in sync. You know, we knew what we were going to do. Ben knew what we were going to do. We didn't have to talk about it or think about it. We just went out there and did it. And seeing Oliver advance as a wrestler, you know, he was relatively new in the business when we were tagging together, but to see him really come into himself and to see his momentum start then after we quit tagging and to see that get cut short was just heartbreaking. But just being able, that was honestly some of my favorite few months there traveling and wrestling with them, almost a year actually, of being with them was a lot of fun. And I really enjoy that. One day we're going to get Oliver, whenever he comes back from the beautiful Sunshine State.
That's
and
right.
Ben, we'll get them in here and we'll talk about that, because that is actually, that's to shout out Ring Generals. We did a podcast with them a while back, little Skype call in, you know, Zoom call in, and we all kind of from our respective locations had a little insight into New Era, and it was a lot of fun. But DJ Eric Montgomery said, seriously wish the city of Louisville would allow one more pro wrestling event with all the past and present wrestlers from the Kentucky, Indiana area.
So do I. Why did they stop? It was a good time, and Kentucky wrestling was thriving, and because now they ain't got Louisville Gardens no more, why have they not allowed something like that to happen again?
I think that would be very neat. Louisville has so much history, just like Evansville, Louisville, and Memphis. Louisville has so much history in the wrestling scene. I would love to see a big show like that, a big super show, if you will, happen in Louisville and be able to revisit past, present, future, all of that. Oh, my goodness. We're going to get to Terry England's comment here in a minute. That is a book. At least it wasn't an audio message. My goodness. Is that the next one there? Ryan Mosley said, what's up, guys? Ryan said, Adrian and Oliver were the greatest tag team and could have dominated any tag division at any promotion. Thank you, Ryan. Like I said a minute ago, I absolutely loved our time. Me, Oliver, and Ben absolutely loved that. And I think that if things had went in a different way, we could have really, really done some great things. So thank you. Terry England. All right, here we go. Let me get these brand new glasses pulled up here. Brandon Wolf and Adrian Alexander have been MVPs at many fairs and festivals. You can plug them in anywhere and they will knock it out of the park. I do think AA is right. Even good shows that drew well have flown under the radar for many years. We used to have more coverage and hit a wall, it would seem. But with social media being what it is now, and with folks traveling more from Kentucky, showing what they can do has helped. Talent like Larry D making it have brought more eyes on Kentucky wrestling as well.
Agreed.
And I absolutely agree with that. I do think we got a class of wrestlers in, and I'm going to plug my class, you know, we'll say the year of, you know, whatever year we all started, you know. We had Marty Clay, we had myself, we had Carson Drake. We had these guys kind of coming in all at the same time that Marty and Carson especially have really come into themselves as professional wrestlers. And that, you know, them traveling, them getting on TV, them getting places and being seen, I think has really drawn everything back into Kentucky. I think that's a huge part of what has made Kentucky successful really over the past couple of years. And Terry knows this firsthand. Those fair shows, Marcus Johnson really came into himself over the past couple of years and became just an absolute staple of the fair shows. You know, him and Stan had some classic matches on those fairs. You've got guys like, you know, Jacob Ratliff. Jacob, you know, when he left Kentucky and went to Tennessee, Indiana, places like that, I traveled with him. Many of those places, he really came into himself, and then he kind of sporadically came in and out of those fair shows. But, you know, a whole new atmosphere. You know, it was different. It was the brawling, almost Japanese style, like Minoru Suzuki and guys like that. You know, Jacob brought that hard hitting style in with him. Brandon is, I have been on the same side as him, on the opposite side of him. We have been all over, and Brandon is a phenomenal talent. He is a man that thrown in anywhere is just great. He's adaptable. He's likable. He's easy to work with. He hits really hard sometimes. He's got a hell of an ankle lock. But all these, and I know I'm missing people, and I hate it if I've missed saying any names, but a lot of these younger guys, and that's no knock on the generation before either. I mean, there are a lot of phenomenal. We can talk about the Stan Sierras, we can talk about the J.R. Rocks, we can talk about the Cody Matthews, we can talk about the Chris Michaels, the Chase Stevens, we can go on and on and on all day, but I because again I have a bias to this because I am part of the younger generation. There is
That's
a
true.
younger generation of talent that it's exciting to see what the future of wrestling around here can be.
And not
It's
to mention,
fun to watch it evolve.
Exactly.
Not to mention that there are young guys who do follow the old school tradition. They don't always do what today's generation does. Like you see a couple of these young guys that actually do what old school does. Take it slow and get you thinking about it.
And that's what I think good training does for you. Marty Clay was trained by John Noble, a great, I know you shared the ring with him several times, I'm sure.
He and Eddie Browning.
Eddie Browning, yep. And so, it's what good solid training does for you. Yeah. It allows you to obviously that's what he was known for was he made a name for himself in the Dale Man and those days around Kentucky and in the surrounding areas for just being a solid talent. And so when you put that backbone behind somebody with the athleticism of Marty Clay, I mean,
exactly,
you get a great athlete. And I promise I don't expect Marty to put me over too much on his next podcast, but
when Marty Clay first came on here, he wasn't as talked about as he is now. When he came on here before, the first time we had him on, he was quiet. Then we bring him in the next time, he's talking a lot. It's like he finally gained that confidence.
He found his voice. Does that mean we need to have him on again on the Nice Guy Andy podcast?
Yes, we do.
The third time.
We're planning to have him and John Gilbert again. Him and Nick Depp maybe together.
Yep, Nick Depp would be a phenomenal person having the Nice Guy
Hey,
Andy podcast.
we've had him on here before.
Have you? Okay.
With John Gilbert.
Wow, I missed that. Okay, well,
So we got to get the Blade back too, right?
Yep. We got to get Bobby Blade back. We
Bobby
got to
Blade.
get
That
Dan
is.
Childers.
We need to get them together.
Exactly.
Can you imagine
That's what we've been working on.
If we had the encyclopedia, the history of Dan Childers and the encyclopedia knowledge of Bobby Blade and the history of Bobby Blade. Bobby wouldn't stop. He would have added dates in every 5 minutes.
Yes.
Somebody's head would explode, and I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be mine.
That's true. But
or it might be mine.
We're all about bringing in both old school Kentucky and younger Kentucky. Because for the longest time, you ain't seen old school Kentucky and young school Kentucky bridge that gap where they could talk to each other and learn.
In one ring.
Exactly.
Together. Is this the comeback of Danny Steamboat? I see it mulling. There we go. There's the thought. He didn't say no. Did you hear that? He didn't say no.
That's true. He didn't say no.
Never say never.
He's like, I'll just leave it to your imagination.
That's right. Yeah. Imagine. Dream on.
But,
What?
that's what it's all about, because now the old school Kentucky wrestling can teach young school, and young school can teach old school, because they're both now understand that they can talk to each other and learn from each other and see what works, what doesn't work. Before, you had guys that were like, this young generation, they just suck. But now they're starting to watch the younger generation, and they're like,
I never
you know what?
thought they sucked.
Exactly. But there are some that did.
I know where you're coming from. I'm just
But
joking.
at the same time, them bridging together now,
Yeah.
that's what's making Kentucky thrive.
Let's talk about that. Let's feed off of that there. Are we done with the, let's see here. Oh my goodness, hold on. Terry England's got 4 more comments coming.
Terry's bound to have something to say, surely.
Carson Drake signing with the NWA is huge. Kentucky really putting out big stars. Adrian Alexander and Dan need to listen to those voice messages word for word. You will learn so much. Look at what they have done for Superfly Johnny Lee. He listens to them before bed each night, and now get the hook. Dan is overheating. Then Bobby Blade said Dan doesn't know it, but he's on the pre-show at the next EWA show. Book it, Bobby. Book it, Bobby.
Hey,
All right.
I'm not saying Terry's slow. I'm just saying it takes him an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes. That's all I'm saying.
And technically, you could already win that pre-show match if you don't show up and get inside the ring. I'm just saying, you take out your opponent before he gets that ring, and then you show up and he gets counted out. You won.
No, Terry's a good guy. He likes to joke me, and when we get together, it's kind of like a tennis match, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Let's talk.
He still thinks I owe him money, but I'm guarantee you he owes me money. There ain't no two ways about it.
Terry wouldn't be a type of person to rub two nickels together and get 11 cents, would he?
That's exactly the type of person that he is.
But
he's so tight he squeaks when he walks.
That's right. If he saw 10 cent on the ground, he'd be the first person to try to get it up.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to glue a nickel to the concrete floor and watch him go get a forklift and try to pry that thing loose. I guarantee you he would. Now, Terry, I love you, buddy. You know that. Now, what's he going to He's going to leave me out.
You're going to get, somehow he's going to figure out how to put a voice message in this chat where he's going to call in. Hey, Terry, there is a call-in number.
He's going to leave a message on my phone. My phone will just die.
The call-in number, Terry, is 859-684-9535. If you want to call in.
Guys, we have 9 minutes left that we can be on here. So seriously, if you have any more questions or anything, we'll try to get to them here in these last few minutes. While we're winding down, I want to ask you this question.
Are you ready, Superfly?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
What, and this can be professional, this can be TV, this can be indie. What guy over the past, I think you've just recently more or less came back into the wrestling scene, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I was, I kind of, I kept up to a certain extent, but, kids in, I'll just say the reason that I was out of the local scene for so long is because all of my time was either at a softball practice or softball games, at softball fields, in-state, out-of-state. I mean, I've even flown, from Lexington to Savannah, Georgia, because my daughter was playing softball. And then, my sons, played basketball a few years back, and AAU tournaments in Columbus and Atlanta and different. So just traveling with ball, whether it's basketball, softball, soccer, just a variety of things. So, and people always told me, you don't get a do-over. You only go this way once. So, so life is about choices.
And you never regretted that decision
And I
once,
have not regretted that decision once. So it's kind of like there is a little bit of learning curve coming back because things have changed. Things are different. When I was ready, we didn't have a gorilla position at an indie show, but they do now, and I'm like, dang, that's pretty sharp. I mean, what did you think about the setup at the last EWA show in Frankfurt at Thornhill?
I thought they were spectacular.
Oh, man. I mean, with the video, everything, and the tunnel coming out, whoa, easy.
The presentation.
It's
all about it.
It was awesome. It was really first class. And so it was a treat. But anyhow, go on with your question.
Okay, well, no, you can keep talking. You can keep talking me up all night. No, I'm just kidding. But what has been one standout person that you have seen, whether it be, or we could even break this down on the indie level and the professional level? What, being back, what's one standout person that you're like, yeah, they are going to be somebody, or, or you saw them become somebody, if you will?
Okay. Well, let's, indie, you mentioned Carson Drake. I mean, he, when I saw him, I think I saw him on a fair show.
It's probably that show that about blew away.
It could have been. No, I think there was one before the
Oh,
one
okay.
that blew away. But yes, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, because I was going to come back to it, and when it started going, I was like, I have to catch them later.
Started seeing tents fly and
Yeah, that was in Garrett County.
Garrett County, the Heritage Festival.
USWF.
Yep.
Jimmy does a great job. So, yes, seeing if I have to pick one right off the top of my head, and this is the trouble you get into when you pick one. You're liable to run into somebody else, and they're like, "Hey, I heard you say that." I'm like, "Well, it just happened to be the first one that came to mind." And you mentioned Marty Clay. He's another great talent that's coming along just fine. And Stan on the indie, I mean, he is the man on the indie, in my opinion.
Really
and then
is.
you got ladies, my goodness, Lexi Green,
Yep.
Ari Alexander, the Littlefoot.
Alexis Littlefoot,
Alexis,
yes.
she does a great job, and Morgan's coming along. Morgan's coming along. So, you've got some great ones there. Am I forgetting? Is there any other part of the indie you wanted me to?
No, just
Okay.
who on the bigger level, on
Well,
the TV level, so to speak.
I don't know that there's any one person that I would just go, I like them 100%. Nobody 100%, because they all got a little something that I'm like, But MJF in some ways is a throwback.
Yep.
Because of some of the little nuances, and you almost have to be inside the business to see some of the stuff he does to pick up on it. Little stuff, like tackle, crossover, and then, strut over the person.
The old Memphis style spot. Yep.
Some of that stuff, yeah. Just to get, a rise out of the crowd. I tell you another one that when she's on TV, I will watch, and it's because of her character is Timeless
Tony
Yep.
Storm, yes.
Tony
Yep.
Storm.
I mean, she is unique. She's developed that character, and the people that she's got, that girl with her, I can't think of her name, and then she's got is that Luther?
Luther, yeah.
The guy,
Yep.
That's got, and they go black and white when the camera's on them.
That was a stroke of genius.
I mean, that is very well done.
Who I can't think of her name right now, Johnny. I know you'll know what I'm talking about. On the indie level, does a similar timeless gimmick. She does an old woman. I can't think of her name.
Oh, I know you're talking
right there,
about
too.
Kitty.
Thunder
Kitty
Kitty.
LaFour. Yep, Thunder Kitty.
Kitty.
I don't think I've seen it.
You would appreciate
Yeah,
the
you
gimmick.
need to check
It
her
is-
out.
It is it's a throwback
Well,
style gimmick that
and
is neat.
Another lady on the indie scene that has got real good potential is Big Mama.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She
NWF.
is, I saw her at different shows, but let me put it to you this way. The last time I was in Chillicothe, Ohio, and watching that show, they were chanting. They wanted her in the ring with Mickey James. I mean, the crowd, that whole place, however many it holds, 4 or 5 grand, whatever it is, at the Ohio University College Center. Man, they wanted. I mean, they had them, So
Getting out the palm of hand.
she's excellent. She's
Absolutely.
excellent.
So, guys, we are down in the final couple minutes. I don't see any more questions popping up. Monica said y'all are going to be there all night, and we could talk all night long about all kinds of things. Reading anything from Terry England could have us here until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, we just have 2 minutes left to go. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Dan Childers.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. This has been an incredible debut of Talking in Circles. We have had a lot of fun. We have filled, Dan didn't think we could fill 2 hours of just talking about him. But we filled 2 whole hours, and we didn't even scratch the surface. I think we could run a part 2 on
That's
Dan
right.
Childers and probably fill another 2 hours. But I really want to
Wow.
thank him. I want to thank the Nice Guy Andy podcast, Johnny
Definitely.
Lee, Superfly Johnny Lee, for having the both of us here tonight and kind of manning everything
Thank you,
over
brother.
here.
Appreciate it.
Thank Mr. Andy himself. I'd like to again thank everybody for making this possible. All the sponsors: USWF, UCW, AMW, EWA. Like to thank everybody that tuned in and listened tonight, and everybody that will continue to tune in. Will continue to tune in and watch this over the next few days. I see those numbers really come up.
That's right.
How much time we got?
We've got we got time. We can run over.
Play us out with the old exit.
Oh, we're
commercial
That's
music.
right.
We're gonna run out here while I look this up. I just thank anybody and everybody that I haven't already named. We're starting at 11 seconds. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. 11
Thank you for
seconds.
having me. This has been a blast. What a treat. I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You're
And
welcome.
Thanks
you're-
everybody for their questions and comments, smart remarks, as my old chemistry teacher used to say.
That's what it's all about.
Here we go.
We will play off with this right here. This may become the new outro for the Nice Guy Andy podcasting. I like this.
That's true too.
Until
Or
next time.
Just talking in circles. This is the outro for talking in circles. We'll add a little button over here. I can just hit the
Yeah.
button.
We should.
There we go.
Talking in circles.
Great.
But thank you guys so much. Talking in Circles will be back. We don't know an exact date yet, but we will be back. And the next guest might just surprise you.
That's right.
Stay
Be on the
tuned
lookout.
and listen to the Nice Guy Andy podcast.
God bless.
That's right, because tomorrow the raffle is going to be happening. Goodbye, everybody. So long. And just remember, Kentucky Wrestling's where